I'll come back to reading The Decades with Me today from a slightly different angle and position, because I thought why not just have a cozy get together today. Let's talk about books, or I talk about books and you listen to me, and you can tell me your opinions and what you've read in the comments down below. And yeah, let's start with the January wrap-up. So January is always a month where I think it feels like this month goes on for forever and ever, and instead of 31 days you get like 131 days actually. Yeah, so I'm really glad that January is over, because that's the month I like least out of all of the months in the year. And let's be honest, that wasn't a great start to the new decade, into 2020, when we look at the situation of the world right now. But today we're here to talk about books. So let's talk about books. I read 20 books in January, which is quite a good start to the year. But in January I always read a lot of books, mainly because after New Year there's still a week of holidays. So when I went to school and when I went to university, it was always mainly my reading time that I used those holidays for. So that never changed, and I'm still reading lots of books in January. So I put them in different categories. So I have a thriller section, a non-fiction section, a just contemporary fiction section. Yeah. Let's start with the thrillers I've read in January. A Nearly Normal Family by M.T. Edwardson. This book is originally published in Swedish. I've read the English translation, and this book is also set in Sweden. It follows a family, and the daughter in this family has supposedly committed a crime. She gets convicted, and this book is written from the perspective of the father, the mother and the daughter, and everybody tells their story, their feelings. So it's kind of not only a thriller but also a family drama. And it was really interesting, and I really liked it. Especially, I think all those different perspectives really made this book. And it was kind of a quick read, but I really enjoyed it. And if you have the opportunity to pick this up, please do, because that was a really good, not so much a thriller but more of a family story, a character study. And yeah, whenever something new comes out by this author, I definitely think I'm going to check this out. Another really good thriller was The Assistant by S.K. Tremaine, and I think this one came out just recently this year, or just last year. And this story is about a young woman who just moved in with her best friend after a not so good year, after a breakup with her ex-husband or boyfriend. And she's a journalist, and also she has a background of mental illnesses in her family, and she starts to believe that the home devices, the assistants, like they do have different names, but basically like Google Home, Alexa, Siri, that they start to bully her in a way. Well, they talk about they start to mention weird things that only the protagonist really can know about, because it was something that happened in her past which she kept a secret for a very long time. And but also on the same at the same time she's like, oh, is it really the assistants who go crazy, or is it actually me, because of the mental illness history in her family? So she tries to find out what's going on. Nobody really believes her. The first few pages, like the first 50 or so pages, were really badly written, and was nearly giving up on this one. But the premise was so interesting, so I thought, okay, I give it another few more pages, and it seriously got better. So and it got really good in the end. I really enjoyed that one. So if you feel the same when you read it, please don't give up. It's going to be better, but the beginning really needs some editing in my opinion. And another thriller I read was The Warehouse by Rob Hart, which is set in kind of like a slightly futuristic world. It's about a big company, kind of like, you really could feel that it all was inspired by Amazon. This company is called Cloud in this instance, and they have features like, they dominate basically everything. They've killed all these small town businesses. They now make food. They distribute their products by drones. They have really, really big warehouses all over the world, and they're the main ones who can still employ people. So lots of people see Cloud as the last destination work-wise, because it also has like hints to the drastic climate change, and the economy is completely down. So yeah, so we follow our protagonist Paxton, who just starts working there, and we follow another protagonist, and she seems to be a spy, and tries to find out why, well, the thing is that Cloud runs on very low energy levels. It has like a green carbon footprint basically, and she can't really believe that, and the company, or the spying company she works for, sent her there to find out what's really going on. So, and those two characters, they meet, and they have different motivations, and yeah, it was really interesting. I really enjoyed that one. It was a very weird atmosphere, because basically all the time they're only in this warehouse. They live there, they sleep there, they spend their free time there, they work there, and it was a very interesting world building, and yeah, can definitely recommend this one. And I think it also inspired me a bit to read The Circle by Dave Eggers, because I think that might go in the same direction. So yeah, definitely a recommendation. So these were my thrillers. Now just two random books. I don't really know where to categorize them. The first, I think, is a horror one, which is Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury, and I did not like this. I was really excited for this one. I already wanted to read this last October, but I never came around to reading this, so I decided to read this in January. So this book, I believe, is set in the 1950s, because it came out in 1962. It follows two friends who grew up together, or who are still growing up together. They're teenagers now in this book, and one day, close to Halloween, there is a carnival coming to town, which is organised by two very strange people, and the boys and also other people start to find out what the intention of those strangers is, because nothing seems to be normal anymore, and it really is a story about growing up. But I just really didn't like it that much. It was okay, but I couldn't really connect with all the mysterious, strange going-ons. I really liked the friendship and the different characterizations of those two boys, and I really enjoyed their journey to find out who those people from the carnival really are. But other than that, yeah, I was a bit disappointed by that one. I read one poetry book in January, and this is the Penguin Book of the Prose Poems. So this is an anthology of lots of prose poems from 1842 until 2017, and I really enjoyed this one. I really enjoyed Prose Poems. This anthology was really good, and obviously there are always some poems, or in an anthology you always have some works you don't really like, and then there are others you prefer. And I really enjoyed that one though. It was a really good selection, lots of different authors, lots of different translated poems, so not only British or American ones. And I've written a little note in there, and yeah, it says, or I wrote down, that this was very inspiring for my own writing, because I really enjoy writing poetry, I enjoy writing prose, and I always experiment with prose poems, so yeah, this was really inspiring for me. And I also wrote down that only through poetry you can really learn about a culture, and this is because there's so many poems in there written by authors from different countries, in different languages, from different cultures, and really learn or you really learn from those poems about the culture of the author. So I really enjoyed that. So for example, there were lots of Arabic and Asian poems in there, lots of Chinese and Japanese poems, which I actually really enjoyed. And it is divided into different sections, like the prose poem now, the post-modern prose poem, the modern prose poem, and I enjoyed the postmodern prose poems the best. So the section between the 1950s and the 1990s or 2000s, I really enjoyed the best, and I really can recommend this one. It's nice to dip in and dip out of it. You don't have to read it from cover to cover, basically. Yeah, really enjoyed that one. 2020 I made into the year of Enid Blyton. I want to read all of Enid Blyton's books, and I also want to read the biography of hers and want to find out more about her. So I started my reread with The Famous Five. So the first book I read was The Famous Five on a Treasure Island, and I read this quite shortly after Christmas, after New Year's, because I remember this being a book I always read in my school holidays when I was a child, and my Christmas holidays, and it gave me so many really good nostalgic feelings, and I really enjoyed the story. And so I continued straight on with Five Go Adventuring Again, the second book in the series, and I liked it too again. It was actually a Christmas story even, and yeah, it is so nice to revisit those stories if you don't know them. It's about five friends, and well, there are 4 children and 1 dog, and they go adventuring together. They visit each other, they're cousins, and they stumble upon lots of adventures and mysteries, and they solve those mysteries quite cleverly. It's just so charming. I think they are from the 1940s, so you really get very cozy British stories, and the books are set at the British coast or the British seaside, and it's just so interesting to read them now with a new perspective, where I myself live quite close to the British seaside and have now a better opinion of how the landscape and the environment looks like, and the traditions there and all of that. So definitely really interesting, and also a cozy nostalgic reread. And another young adult book I read was Michigan vs. the Boys by Carrie S. Allen, which is quite something different for me to read, because it is a sports story and I'm not really interested in sports, so this was definitely something new to me. It basically follows a female hockey team at school. They're teenagers, and their female hockey team basically gets cut because they don't have the budget for it anymore. But Michigan tries to fight her way up and join the boys hockey team, but the boys absolutely do not accept her, and that all turns into a really sad and absolute horrible story. And I wasn't prepared for that. I wasn't expecting that. I thought well, first of all, I didn't think of them being teenagers. I thought they were a bit younger. I thought they were about 12 years old, but they're actually 16, 17 in this book. And I wasn't prepared for all those shocking events and this brutality that happened in this book. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was really interesting. The sports aspect actually was really interesting too. So obviously it took place a lot in the hockey ice rink and all of that. Definitely something different, and a very empowering story in the end. So I can definitely recommend this one. And also it taught me that venturing out of my comfort zone is definitely well, I definitely benefit from that, because I discovered this one and yeah, really enjoyed it. Then to a bunch of novels that I read. First we have Tomek Alistair Be Safe, and this is a very short novel which talks about the after events of a school shooting. It is basically about a teacher who wrongly gets accused of being involved in this school shooting, and it then follows her after she's being released, after she's been found not guilty and not being involved in anything there of the happenings. It follows how she deals with it, how this event traumatized her, and how this event basically traumatized a whole town. And it was okay. It was a book I would have enjoyed better like around 10 or 15 years ago. That would have definitely been, yeah, I think 10 years ago that would have definitely been something I was really interested in. It was okay, but yeah, it didn't leave any, I didn't get anything out of it. I started the year with Bridget Jones' Diary by Helen Fielding, which is now over 20 years old. Can you believe that? So yeah, basically this book is about Bridget Jones, and she writes her life down in her diary, her daily happenings in her job, in her love life that is mainly non-existent, and it is very interesting to read it from a point of view that is set in the 90s, and exploring the female image of the late 90s, and then also putting it into now the 2020s, or last decade. So that was really interesting. I really enjoyed it, and I think we can now in 2020 get a lot more out of it than when it was first published in, I think, 1997 or 1998. So yeah, definitely recommend it for somebody who is interested in how literature ages. Another really good book I read was Laura Sims' Looker, and this is quite a short one, and it is written in very short paragraphs, and it is about this woman here who just went through a breakup with her ex-husband and had some difficulties in her job. She's a professor at university, and they tried to cut her out of there because of budget reasons, and she is obsessed with an actress that lives opposite to her in the house, and she stalks her, she follows her, she imagines happenings with her, she imagines being her friend, and she imagines having an affair with her husband, and all of that. And then in the end it comes to the big showdown where something happens that she didn't anticipate. You as a reader really don't anticipate. So yeah, I really love the language in this one. And if you're into literary fiction, if you like maybe the thriller aspect of it, it isn't really a thriller at all. It's more of a character study again, and an exploration into the state of mind. Yeah, but really enjoy this one. And if you want to take the time to read 198 pages of really well written story, then check this one out. Another really good book I read was Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This book is set in the 1950s and 1960s. It is about a girl who grows up in the marsh of North Carolina. We follow her growing up in the 1950s when she's basically left on her own by all her family, and how she fights to survive in a very harsh environment, and how she in the end becomes one with the environment. And then on the other hand, we follow a crime investigation in 1969 and 1970 where a young man has died under suspenseful circumstances, and people obviously rather easily judge the marsh girl, how they call her, to be the murderer. So this is also another character study and a very, very beautifully written book. It focuses so much on nature. You learn so much about the landscape and environment in this place in North Carolina. It was a very, very beautiful book. I read so many good books in January, and another really good one was An Impossible Marriage by Pamela Hansford Johnson, a book that I think was published in the 50s as well, but it is set in the 1930s. It follows this young protagonist called Christy, who just lives a normal young girl's life. She just finished school to become a secretary. She lives at home with her father and his second wife. She has a big group of friends, and it's about her growing up. And then she meets this man here who's quite a bit older than her, and they get married. And this marriage isn't what she wanted, or how she imagined a marriage could be. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one a lot, and I'm going to check out lots of her other books as well. They're already on my wish list for quite a long time. I'm so glad that I finally came around reading this one. And then the last section of books I read in January is non-fiction, and I read quite a lot of non-fiction in January. To start with this very short one, which is The World of Wolf Hall, a reading guide to Hilary Mantel's Wolf Hall, Bring Up the Bodies. The third book comes out in March. I haven't read the other two books, but I'm really interested in reading them, and this book basically gives an overview of what happens in those books, the timeline, a bit of historical background, an overview of the family trees, and yeah, it was quite interesting to get into this. And it also talked a bit about what relevance historical fiction, and especially Wolf Hall, has for us in now 2020. Then the absolute worst book I've read in January and in a very long time is Autism by Uta Friis, which is from a very short introduction by the Oxford University Press, and I can't believe that Oxford actually published this book. So Uta Friis actually is quite a prolific researcher when it comes to autism, I found out, but this book is horrible. I tapped so many things. You can really tell that it is written from an outsider's perspective, so she is not autistic herself, which you don't have to be, obviously, when you do research on a certain topic, but she has such an outsider's perspective of things. The language in this one is highly problematic. How she portrays autistic people and autistic traits is like very old-fashioned. Like, I think she started her research quite a few decades ago, and you can really tell that she hasn't really progressed from there in her own thinking about it. And yeah, so if you want to get any kind of background information, if you want to read about autism, please do not read this one, because that doesn't even have any substance to it. This just basically gives ideas and theories that aren't even confirmed yet. And yeah, please do not read this. It's absolute garbage. And please, Oxford University Press, how could you ever do this? And from an autistic point of view, for myself, I was so offended by this one. This book makes you feel, I feel all the feels now again. It makes me really angry that this got ever published. It's from 2008, so first I thought, oh, maybe it's from the 80s. No, it is definitely not. So it is quite recent, and just an utter piece of garbage. Another book I read from a very short introduction series was Robert Eaglestone's contemporary fiction, which I highly enjoyed. It was very interesting, and it was also extremely inspiring. I marked lots of things that I probably use for my own contemporary fiction writing, or just for my general writing. And yeah, it gave a good, this was definitely a very good introduction to contemporary fiction. Then I read Susan Orlean's The Library Book, which is a crime story about, or which is a crime and investigation story about the Los Angeles Public Library that burned down in 1986. So it follows this event and basically all the questions of who has done it and why did it happen, and it follows the person who got or who got involved in this burning and who was thought of being the one who started the fire. And then on the other hand, it also talks about libraries in, not so much in general, but with the focus of the libraries in Los Angeles. And yeah, it was really interesting to learn about the library system in America and how it evolved throughout the time, especially in Los Angeles, and to also learn about the history of Los Angeles through reading, through books, through the library. And yeah, sometimes it was a bit slow, and it sometimes lost a bit, or I lost a bit really interested in it, but I got a bit bored sometimes because some descriptions were very long. But in the end, I really enjoyed that one. I learned quite a lot, and yeah, definitely recommend this one if you're interested in libraries and or in a good crime investigation story. And now to my 3 favourites of January. First, we have C.S. Lewis' The Reading Life, which is an anthology of little vignettes and snippets taken out from all his other works that focus on reading. So it talks about well, it talks about the reader, it talks about reading, it talks about his own experience with reading, it talks about reading in general. It's a very short book. The font is quite big, you can read it quite quickly, and I think it would make a very beautiful gift for somebody who is a reader, who enjoys reading, who loves books, and it is extremely inspiring. Then I've read Bruce Hood's Possessed, Why We Want More Than We Need, and I will definitely make a video on this one because I want to apply what I've learned in this book on our book culture, especially on YouTube. And yeah, it was extremely interesting. It wasn't really what I expected it to be, but I learned so much from this one, and I'm excited to make a video about this. And my absolute favourite, maybe even my favourite of the year already, is How to Do Nothing by Jenny Odell. I love this book, and while I was reading this, I was all the time like, oh my god, she is describing me, she's describing the way how I live. This book is talking about how to do nothing, basically, and how nothing is defined in our current Western attention economy society at the moment, and what you can do to do nothing. And I felt really good reading this book because actually she lives quite the lifestyle I do live too, and it was like talking to a friend about our lives, about the same topic, about the same lifestyle, and it was just gorgeous. And I can recommend this to everyone who wants to slow down a bit, to focus their attention a bit more towards other things than work and what other people tell you to do. And I'm going to make a response video to this, I think, because it really hit my heart, and it feels so homely. It just feels like it is a book about me, and I absolutely love this one. So there you have it. This is my big January wrap up, which is quite massive. I'm not sure if I can do 20 books again in February. Also, we have less days in February. But yeah, I had really good reading ones. I had a lot of new insights into topics I haven't touched before. I gained a lot of new knowledge, lots of new inspiration that I want to apply to my own writing and to own projects, and I'm just very grateful for all the books people have written that made me as a reader and as a human being in January. I'd love to know what you've read in January and what was your best and also your worst book in January. And I hope you enjoyed this, just very casually sitting down and talking about books. And I hope I see you very soon next week, and happy reading!